Good morning, Dr. Satyapal. How are you?
Yeah,
I
I'm
am Dr. Yes, I am Dr. Srividya Venkatraman. I am internal medicine senior consultant at MGM Healthcare, and I welcome you to our web session on back to work for the corporates. And I am sure you are doing all the work right because Government of India has fortunately made some fantastic protocols. Um, Most of these protocols are on flexible basis. It can be modified, and we are all in the learning process. So I would like to know your experience in with your workforce, sir.
So this is Dr. Sathapan. I am the corporate medical head of Larsen and Toubro. We have around 8,000 employees in our campus and another 50,000 depend on us spread across India and pan world operations. We are spread in around 30 countries, and this is not an office company. We have around 700 projects pan India and the world over, and people keep traveling day in and day out. We run some of the biggest projects and all the technocratic achievements the country has seen. So, this is the biggest headache for me because people keep traveling. And we have
Absolutely.
employees from all quarters of the country
Sir.
as from the outside world.
Mm.
So at this outset, I like to ask certain norms which we are practicing. Please clarify whether I comply with it, and you can also add up tips so that it will make our life and others' life better.
Sure, sir.
To start with, what we do is even the simplest of symptoms like cough, cold, headache, diarrhea, I send the employee home from work. First, to allay fears of the surrounding employees, as well to reassure him that he is taken care of. I tell them to go sit at home for 3 days and observe. If you have any symptoms aggravating for 3 days, or if it continues for 3 days, then go for COVID test. It doesn't mean always it is COVID. It can be as well others. But first rule out COVID, and then we can treat others. And don't take any unnecessary medications other than paracetamol. This is what it is. If the symptoms subside in 1 or 2 days, observe for 3 days at home. They should be totally asymptomatic for 3 days to come back to me. So a minimum of 1 week quarantine I give for even the simplest of complaints. Am I complying? Am I good at it? Or can you add up something to it?
No, this is perfect, sir. Even for healthcare workers, this is what pretty much we are doing. Say, for example, even at the end of the day, I can feel feverish. So I will isolate myself and observe for the next 24 to 48 hours. If I do not have any symptoms, then I am good to come back to work, even in 3 days' time, if no symptoms at all. But if, say, for example, the patient, we continue to have fever or any symptoms of progression, we have to wait for at least 48 hours after the symptoms have stopped to come back to work to ensure that one, the patient is fully rested, and the second, that he is not infective anymore. As simple as I think you are good there. You are absolutely works well.
So another doubt many people have being an employees and a lot of employees work together. Suddenly they get panic, they want to do RT-PCR test. I
Yes.
tell them it is not worth doing it because nothing is perfect in this world.
Mm.
And another thing dictate from the ICMR as from the local health department is don't do asymptomatic testing.
Correct.
So unnecessarily burdening the healthcare sector. So
Correct.
unless you have symptoms, then there was a big worry and concern among employees. Do I have to suffer for 3 days to do the test? So I tell them, you want curd, you have to wait for 6 hours to ferment. You want to make idli, you have to wait one night for the flour to ferment. This is what we call in medical terms incubation period. Wait for the disease, let it flare up, then only you have to do. And I have had employees who in the first day or second day ran to the corporation and build up that they have symptoms for 3 days to 5 days to make them comply with the test. He was
Correct.
negative for RT-PCR and the fever continued for another 5 days. So once
Mm.
again he went there and then they did the RT-PCR and he was positive. And
Positive.
after grilling him only, they realized that on the second day he came of the symptoms and he was
Mm.
negative. So I tell them this as an example to all, saying that there's no other go. You have to wait for the disease to develop for you to be positive. In the meantime, even the simplest symptom, isolate at home.
Correct.
So you may be a source of infection to others.
Exactly. So this is how it goes. If you have a symptom on day one, we wait for 3 days before we do RT-PCR because the chances of your becoming positive after the third day is higher. If you do it in the first 2 days and you turn out to be negative, whether it is technique, the viral load is not that much, then the chances is that you are actually positive, but you were early to test, so you become infective to 10 more people. So lot of false negative in the community is why we have had a very bad community spread. Panicking does not answer, is not the answer to any situation. If whether you have symptom, you have a suspicion, best thing you can do is isolate. Give yourself, it should not, the problem with isolation is, sir, that people start thinking that I am going to be away from everybody. I am going to be isolated now. I will be, then they become panicky and scared. I tell my patient, you need to look at it that this is the best 3 days I can give myself in this year to rest my body, to look at it in a very positive way. My experience with very sick cases and moderately sick cases is also the people who are positive actually come out of corona very easily. Then people who are panicking, who are anxious, they develop their own hypoxic symptoms when they are panicking. So it is very important that they do not panic at all. It is a viral. See, most of these patients otherwise also, if they have a small fever, cough, cold, they don't report to any doctor. They will go to the pharmacy, pick up their own medicine and eat. So we don't want you to do that, but we just want you to stay home and do nothing for the first 3 days. You are absolutely right in that, sir. Because we owe it to the society that we do not create more cases, more panic from our side.
Another concern is I could be a silent carrier. I can be a asymptomatic patient. You tell me to wait at home for no 1 week that I have come in contact with a positive case. How is it that I could be a silent carrier and I will infect others? Because you medical people say from 5th to 12th day is the infective cycle, a positive case can spread to others. And that is why initial 14 days is absolute quarantine, whether at home or hospital or an institution. In this period, if I am a silent carrier, I can spread it to others.
That
So,
that is why we tell them that you isolate. Whether you test or not, you have to isolate. The second thing is, say for example, you came in contact with one positive person today. Okay, so today is Friday. The chances is that you will probably develop symptom after 48 hours, which is on Monday. If you do not develop any symptoms, the chances that you may be a symptomatic carrier is there, but you know you were exposed to a positive person, so you isolate yourself for the first 4 5 days. You continue to be asymptomatic, you are not going to be infective. Asymptomatic carriers are less likely to infect other people because for the very simple reason that the viral load, the virus presence in their body itself is so less that it is not causing any symptom. So it is equally less to cause infection to the other person also. But on the safer side, as a precaution, you quarantine yourself for 3 days. No symptoms, you are good to go. Even if you check RT-PCR positive or negative later, does not matter. Quarantine is still the answer.
and that's why we maintain 1 week quarantine to reassure them. And that,
Absolutely.
yeah, that has become justified by medically what I have learned in the last 3 months is these people in a hurry burry don't do the COVID test as well the CT scan. There you will see that the CORAD rating is 1 or even
To,
negligible or
yeah,
2. And that is where the disease is very small, I mean minimal from the layman's point of view, in which you will come out 100% without any symptoms or consequence. So you might as well be a silent carrier and maintain 1 week quarantine to be on the safer side. And and,
the
and
yeah,
these are the
the
people whom the government or the health department or the hospitals to place to be on home quarantine.
quarantine. My
And
issue is also that when you do it early on, say for example, you are diabetic, and most people are diabetic, have cholesterol, have got some amount of heart disease. Some of them will be smokers. Some of them will be obese. Okay. These people, for whatever fear, check in the first 2 days. They turn out to be negative. The CT scans are normal. They become very casual. They leave checking. But they are the people who progress from that fifth, sixth day and become deadly. They become sick. So they don't want to accept on the fifth, sixth day that they are actually sick, because on the first 2 days they have been negative and they've been fine. The second thing is that when they want, say for example, they are positive on the first 2 days, but they are asymptomatic or mild symptom, because of fear of progression, they want to get admitted into a hospital. They are okay for the first 5 days, we discharge them. The next day they become sick. So my thing is, home quarantine and isolation stands best till your fever continues to persist, your oxygen saturation starts dropping to less than 93, or you become visibly breathless. That means when you are talking, you are not able to complete one sentence. We don't have to count the respiratory rate. Any of these three things on the fifth day or the sixth day, the patient should not waste any more time and come to the hospital. If this is not there, they should not come. They should just continue home quarantine and monitoring.
Good. Another thing is commonly happening is as soon as you become positive, anyhow, whether you do it in government or a private lab, it is communicated to the health department and the local health official visits home. So they
Correct.
usually take the affected person to the government healthcare facility where they do the blood test and X-ray test.
Excellent.
Whereas in a private hospital, they do a CT scan. And with this only, they identify whether you need a home quarantine or institutional quarantine or you require hospitalization. And the first thing is employee. I am privileged. So I don't want to go to the government institution. But they go to the private
Sure.
hospital and immediately they bombard me to pressurize to be hospitalized. And this unnecessary hospitalization is happening in the recent past. And then they come and tell me I'm
Absolutely.
absolutely fine. I was totally asymptomatic, but I was, exploited. My insurance money is gone. The hospital is misused. Hospital is exploiting the patient. This nonsense is going on for the last, I would say, 2 months.
I
Any,
absolutely agree. Mm.
I don't want to go to the government facility. If I go there, they may dump me in a school or a college or a Chennai Trade Center or a marriage hall where my privilege and I am working in this concern and I am in this designation and I earn so much money. No, all this plays a role. It is a no open fact. Everybody knows this. So first put me in the hospital. And the health department also clarifies, yeah, where you want to go. Yeah, my doctor or the companies arranged a hospitalization. Okay. After they confirm, they don't trouble these people. So they go and sit in the hospital. And then after being discharged, usually from fifth day or seventh day, then they go bombasting in WhatsApp and other things. These people are misusing us. They are cheating us. They are exploiting us. They create the problem and then they blame others.
Absolutely. So this has been my pain also for the last 3 months, because I am one of me and my team are those who are, whether the patient is stable or the patient is sick, we have to wear the PPE and go inside the wards and do rounds and answer all their queries, and still they are not happy, because see, the whole purpose of trying to ensure that they are stable goes away when it comes to insurance and billing. Now, my thing here is that when a patient who does not have hypoxia comes to our flu clinic also, unless they are above the age of 60 or they are diabetic, we do not do CT scan, sir. We only do the CBC and C reactive protein, which tells us whether the patient's lymphocytes are low or the patient's inflammatory markers are high. If the patient is clinically stable, oxygen saturation above 95, temperature less than, or even if there is a mild low grade fever, because corona is all about low grade fever only, up to 100, nobody goes above that. We give it in writing. These patients are eligible for home quarantine. All they have to do is monitor and all. But these patients, no, no, no. I have elderly patients at home. I want to get admitted, then 2 days, 3 days admission. And then our protocol changes, because when we are going to admit, we are going to do, we are answerable to the insurance also why we are admitting. Then we have to do the CT scan. If the CT score is showing CORADS 5 and even a mild, we are supposed to give them antiviral, because tomorrow insurance is going to ask me, and insurance is outright rejecting these patients, saying there was no indication for admission. I agree, no indication for admission, but I can't write their patient's thing. So I am very clear these days, at the cost of being rude, I tell you don't need admission. Then what you are saying, I am entitled, I have this referral, I have so many whatever and all. So we are facing this. People need to understand that you really need to come into the hospital only on day 5. If you have symptoms, you are breathless, we will take care of you. Otherwise, please quarantine. I have a successful home quarantine project going on with almost 400 patients registered. Amazing. They're all doing very, very well. Some of them we have been able to pick up early and bring them to the hospital for admission, or refer them to whichever hospital is closer to their house. And most of them have been doing very well. So I think elderly. So the three big criteria for admission becomes anybody who is above the age of 60, known diabetic, known comorbids, obese patients, bad lungs, smokers. They are the people who need to be careful.
Okay, now I'll come into the mid-cycle of the disease. After 1 week, usually we say no home quarantine, take vitamin C, zinc, and some give azithromycin, some don't give azithromycin. From the private side, I think we issue, we recommend azithromycin, where in the government they don't do. After 1 week, there is a requirement for review. So is that review after 1 week or 2 weeks? And some have been recommended 1 week, some 2 weeks, then they keep on calling us.
So, sir, in the government, instead of azithromycin, they give tetracycline. So I have seen that. And sir, all these medications have been approved for corona treatment on a compassionate ground. So broadline protocol, yes, there is no harm in taking zinc. Zinc is known to be antiviral, virucidal, and it helps with immunity. So zinc is good, vitamin C is good, even vitamin D is good, because we are staying inside the house for so long, which is fine. Azithromycin, if any patient has a throat irritation or mild cough, then I add azithromycin and a Montelukast levocetirizine combination. Very good antitussive. Montelukast is also a mast cell stabilizer, so which helps these patients. Ideal review is only after 2 weeks. We are not going to be doing any change in the patient's medication unless the patient is progressing in a week's time. You don't need 2 weeks quarantine over. Now at the end of 2 weeks, what we need to decide is whether they can come back to work or not. That's it. So but there is no point in doing a 1 week review.
Okay, after 2 weeks, the strict quarantine rules are diluted. So they can work or they can relax and recoup and come. So what I maintain is 28 days from the initial ICMR guidelines. I will say from initial 2 weeks is covering your infective cycle. So you may be contagious. So since it's a viral infection, you can come in contact with secondary infections as well. So isolate yourself, drink hot water, take the stipulated vitamins, and take good nutrition diet. We'll come to the diet in the next part. After 2 weeks, yes, relax. That doesn't mean you go out and you got exposed. Give time for your body to recover and recoup. This is the period where diet and lifestyle changes are important. Walk inside your room, and diet comes into the play. So I use a 28-day cycle as per the initial ICMR guidelines and issue fitness.
So most asymptomatic patients, we tell them after 14 days you can go to work. Some of them repeat their RT-PCR and find they are positive again. which I totally discourage. Don't repeat RT-PCR because the viral presence itself can cause positivity. So we usually ask them to do an antibody test on day 20 plus. If the antibody is high, then they can go back to work normally. If somebody has been hospitalized or they had mild symptoms, we again wait for a week, do their antibody, and they can go to work. Some of them start working from home and then slowly ease back. But what you have said is 100% true. We do not encourage anybody to just go back to normal life, go for workout, exercise, um, go to the market and all, because there is something called as post-COVID sequelae, which we are still evolving and still understanding a lot about it. Some of these patients present with neurological weakness, some patients present with severe electrolyte imbalance, some patient presents with breathlessness, some patient present with heart attack. So it is mandatory, depending upon their comorbidity, to keep an eye on them and not get back into full normal life. So easing out is very important. Normal young less than 40-year-old can get back to work. Above 40 to 50, one more week. Above 50, definitely 2 more weeks. 28 days, antibody positive, no symptoms, can go back to work.
Then coming to antibody, usually I tell them 2 weeks is the disease. So your body is fighting back with the disease. Yeah, after 3 weeks, the body fights back and produces the antibody. So don't keep on checking antibody how much it is. Do it at the 4th week. So where it will be peak. So with the antibody only, I issue fitness. One is to know whether he is really infected or not. I have seen a couple of false positives as well. Next thing is what is the antibody load so that where can I place him? He will be a frontline warrior to defend. So your opinion on that. Next,
Sir,
what I have seen is
mm,
uh, those who had good diet. I have seen IgG antibody count of 50s and 100s. Those are sitting at home and eating all these useless food. I have seen 3, 5, 2, 3, 10, 12. Whereas rich diet of fruits, antioxidants, um, lentils and beans, and egg, definitely the antibody count is more than 50s to 100s.
Uh, so the antibody starts building up from day 8 and the curve. But the ideal time to check the antibody is after day 21, day 20 to above. Antibody is the response of the viral load to our body. Patients who are positive but asymptomatic, most of them are negative. That means they are vulnerable for a repeat infection also.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were asymptomatic to begin with and they were mild means they're already fit people. So they have to continue wearing their mask and maintain social distance. Those who have mild symptoms develop antibody which is less than 10. Anybody above 10 are good antibody. It is only the dilution factor, so which is fine. Now, the thing about COVID antibody is that there is a theory that this is not a antibody mediated viral infection. So how much this antibody is protecting these patients from repeat infection or is it giving them immunity is yet to be fully understood, right? So
Yeah.
we tell the patients that this antibody only holds good for a period of 90 days from the day of infection. So the chances that you will become vulnerable to infection after 90 days is very high, but that does not mean you need to recheck it. No. After 90 days, maybe we can check, but there is no point in checking in between. It does not matter. You are positive antibody wise, you can get back to work. I have not, frankly, made any correlation between diet and I have not, it has not crossed my mind, but maybe I will also start checking out how it works. But I have more or less seen in a family of four, daughter and son-in-law were very mild symptomatic. They developed antibody of 2, 3. The wife was a little bit more, she developed an antibody of 5, 6. Husband was admitted with us. We gave him antiviral. He developed an antibody of 20 plus. It is the intensity of the echo. So it is the intensity of the infection which is going to mount the antibody. For example, sir, I am a frontline worker. I have tested myself once. I was negative. I did my antibody. I was also negative. My son, who is an 18-year-old, who was going to the shop where I don't know where, he picked up. He was positive. We checked it for a travel. When I checked his antibody after 4 weeks, his antibody was negative, totally asymptomatic. So is a very healthy child. So that's how. So if somebody is totally asymptomatic, I don't think the virus is good enough to mount a disease. It's not good enough to mount antibodies also.
So, but you can even look into this. I question a lot to the employees about their diet and lifestyle.
Very important. Very important.
And
because
good nutrition is, I have seen, directly proportionate to a very good antibody count.
I've not made that relation, but I will keep that in mind and I will look at it. But yeah,
so I have a controlled population. That is, I am the family doctor for these 50,000 people. So I am able to monitor them better. You see a floating population, so you may not be able to track, but I can easily track them and call them and do. So give your point. Next, I am planning to do antibody count for these people at the 90th day. So to see what is their
whether it is, so maybe we can actually have a good publication also, because it's a control population. Those who have been positive, definitely we can look at it and we will know, because the next thing which is going to come is the vaccine, and I mean we'll discuss about it. So yeah.
Another thing I did was, though there should not be asymptomatic testing, in my other manufacturing facilities where the workers are there was a lot of apprehension, being the unionized workforce as well the low grade workforce. That is the blue collar.
Correct.
So what we did was we did bulk antibody testing for them in hundreds. And in the, for example, to say in terms of number, there were 463 tests done. In these 463 population whom we were subjected to antibody, there were 18 who were COVID positive. So these 18 had a good antibody count. Also, I was surprised, there was totally 73 antibody positive. So these 73 were silent carriers or silent infections, and they have recovered well. So this is one thing I learned. And
maybe they were mildly symptomatic with loose motion. They didn't, some other symptom, and they didn't connect it to COVID, and out of fear of isolation, they don't come forward and tell. So possibly they had mild symptoms and they turned out to be positive.
So now from the COVID, let us deviate a little bit. This is regarding the diet. I see all sorts of, I always start as, be intelligent and not to be an idiot. When people get apprehensive, what is idiot, doctor? I say internet derived information obstructing treatment.
Thank you so much.
And this is also called cyberchondria. See, these people listen to Google. Google is nothing but a textbook dumped there.
Google,
and there's a doctor there to interpret it. So I always correlate. You don't look into the Google and service your AC or service your car. You are more concerned about it. How can you take your life into risk by referring to Google? They listen to all crap food advice, vitamin advice. They spend a lot of money in taking all sorts of minerals, vitamins, lot of queries about selenium, choline, things and all we don't even talk. Potassium, magnesium, iron, vitamin C, all of us know. Then they buy all these nonsense from online purchase. They
organic, yeah.
I would like to share one thing about one of my patients had admitted for vomiting, diarrhea, chest pain, discomfort, dehydration. So after hospitalization, COVID was negative. Then after 2-3 days of recovery, we put an endoscope. There was severe gastritis. And after recovery of 5 to 7 days, then the questionnaire revealed that this guy was taking 25 lime juice in the morning.
Ayyo. For
And
vitamin C.
you people only said no, vitamin C is protective. So I took 25 limes in the morning. And that is when I changed my approach in educating my employees through webinars and other mailers, stating that just one vitamin C is enough. That is, one lime per family is enough. After cooking, you squeeze it. Learn from this. And another thing I see as high gastritis is this Kabusara Kudineer, no?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
These people think you take this, it is a bulletproof shield. That is a wind glass where you are sitting inside and it is protected. So
absolutely.
Concentrate it and drink. I say, I don't know, as a medical professional who follow allopathic medicine, which is evidence-based medicine, we do not interfere in other system of medicine. But one thing, what I would recommend is follow what is the government guideline. It says about 120 ml boil to 60 ml. I don't know how on earth we are going to boil and bring it down. Unless you are making an illegal arak, you'll know which volume it will come. So tell them follow the norms. What I have learned is these people do double dose. It is protection, no, it is immunity. And invariably, I have seen more gastritis, more sale of Ranitidine, pantoprazole in my pharmacy, more people walking in for antacid syrup in my medical center. I given more antacid treatment compared to before than with this period. And after giving the history reveals these two things.
Not only that, it causes severe loose motions also, sir, because they continue to take that 60 ml per day for, like, it's only supposed to be for 5 days. And I don't know. I said, see, when we are saying it is going to treat a virus, I need to know, okay, this was the viral load before and this was the viral load after. There is no evidence. So we stopped use of Kabasura Kudineer in the hospital diet. I absolutely came down on, I said, government protocol, no protocol. We are not giving it to our patients 100%. I do not advocate it at all. It is not easy, sir. It is so painful to drink it also. I mean, but okay, 5 days, 60 ml is what is asked, but you should not go beyond that. It's not acceptable.
Your suggestion on vitamin C and zinc, government says, I'll just add up. Government says 10 days. So these people take for initial 10 days. But they don't stop with that. Some keep on taking for a month. Then they keep on bugging me when to repeat. Some knowledge on that?
Sir, very simple, sir. B complex and Zincovit is a simple B complex with zinc. Vitamin C is vitamin C. As far as zinc, vitamin B complex and vitamin C is concerned, they are both water soluble vitamin. The corona time, when you have been positive, there is a lot of consumption of micronutrient in your body. Your hemoglobin also drops to 9, ferritin goes high and then it drops down. You remain anemic. Vitamins, these vitamins are water soluble vitamin. After the 10 days stipulated time, you continue to take it. It is garbage in, garbage out. Water soluble vitamin, you take it, your body does not need it. It is going to go out in your urine and stool. It's of no use. 10 days. If you have a B complex deficiency, we continue to give vitamin B, say for example, diabetic and all, but vitamin C toxicity is also documented. So no more vitamin C after 10 days. And in the hospital, we give BD. On discharge, we give only 500 once a day. Zincovit once a day for 10 days, and then we stop it up. That's it.
There was a request and many use, what is it, that for the first month, I took for 10 days. 1 month is over. This month, I took another 10 days dose. So 3 months, I will take 10 days dose. My family doctor recommended outside. I say, okay, it's water soluble, you take, but there's no scientific validation.
Absolutely. And also it is easily available. It is a over the counter medicine, so they don't need a big prescription for these. So they can go ahead and take it. The only thing which we continue to recommend is vitamin D, because we have lot of vitamin D deficiency in India. But how much is this related to corona? Don't know.
I also do the same. I rather tell them it's already there, endemic vitamin D deficiency. So the testing cost itself is around 1,500 rupees or 2,000 rupees. There is the medication is only 200 to 300 rupees. Yeah, take 60,000 units once a week for 12 weeks. That is the stipulated dose, and expose yourself in the morning sun or evening sun at least a minimum of 15 minutes.
Okay.
And this is enough to do. And one thing I learned in between taking the vitamin D, that is, I say 12 doses. In the fourth week or third week or in the sixth week, it is 12 doses. No, they go and test vitamin D, it is high. Then they say, why should I take? I can stop. I say, this is the stipulated dose.
No, because it will go up and then again go down. So, which is fine. So, yeah.
And all crap journals in the WhatsApp and Google, which is all not scientifically validated.
Yeah.
I am under bombardment with all this nonsense. I say just delete it, don't forward it. Now, what about physical activity?
Yeah, that is what I come to. So,
Ma'am, during the COVID period, that is those who are positive, as well others. One advice I give them is, you walk, do exercise, but don't wear a mask and do it, because you are not ventilating properly. You open your mouth and breathe because the demand is there for the oxygen. And these people use the mask and exercise, and I don't know how far it is true. We have seen in WhatsApp that this fellow collapsed and died, that fellow collapsed and died, all this crap news. I tell them, if you are exercising, you require higher oxygen demand. So do a walking in a place where there is no crowd, so that you can ventilate and breathe. Don't wear a mask and do the exercise. Your take on that?
yeah, no mask for exercise for anybody, whether COVID positive or non-COVID. You need to remove it because it increases the dead space. That is one. Anybody who is COVID positive and has mild symptom, we do not advise them to work out because their oxygen demand will be high and they can go hypoxic. So we just tell them you do not work out for the next 1 week or 2 weeks. Once your oxygen saturation remains normal, you get over the weakness, because when they work out during when they're COVID positive, there's a lot of muscle burning also. Then the myalgia and fever sets in, and difficult to come out of it. So when they are positive, till we decide that they are okay to go back to work, we advise not to exercise, work out any form. So no, anyway, they are quarantined, so they cannot get out of the house at all. So no workout for people who are positive till their fitness is. We have lot of patients who come with a CT report, who are positive, who are a CT report of 10 plus, whose markers were very high, for whom we have given viral marker and all. These patients we assess at 3 weeks, sir, with a lung rehabilitation workup or a package, to see how much, because the acute onset or early interstitial lung fibrosis is one of the biggest problems, sequelae of any patient who's coming with a CT scan of 10, more than 25% lung involvement. So 10 by 40 or 7 by 25 is our cutoff. These two are the readings, which means that their lung involvement is 25% and above. So they warrant steroid, they warrant low molecular weight heparin, and they warrant antiviral medication. If the C-reactive protein remains normal, we stop the steroid, we continue for 5 days. These are the patients who need to come back after 3 weeks. Then we make them do a 6 minutes walking on our treadmill. We do a lung function for them. And anybody whose CT scan has been about 20, more than 50% lung involvement, we repeat a CT scan to see how much it has settled, or if there is any evidence of lung fibrosis or any secondary infection. So these are the things which we see before we advise them. Yes, you can go back to your physical activity. Yes, you can. This is the amount of physical activity you can do, or you need to see a pulmonologist long term to ensure that you are doing lung rehabilitation.
Then another common query is this microvascular bleed that is causing this, not the lung disease. So if you take aspirin or clopidogrel, it saves you. And I have come across some who have been self-taking it from their point of view, and others who have prescribed.
So the thing is, again, if this patient CT is more than 50% of the lung involvement, their D dimer was high, and we have given them low molecular weight heparin, then for them to, if their persistent D dimer is high, we do put them on 2 weeks of aspirin, but we also put them on anticoagulants, not antiplatelet. Clopilot and aspirin are antiplatelet. They will not help these pulmonary thrombosis, which is causing the problem. They need to go on anticoagulants like warfarin or other medication, which we use newer ones because we don't have to monitor them for 3 months. But depending upon their severity index, depending upon their D dimer, aspirin and clopilot do not have any role in this at all.
But I come across, many people who tell me, American literature, this, their friends there. Many of our family members are there, the kids
Yeah.
are there.
Yeah.
Take aspirin for another 6 months, 3 months, and they continue to take.
Sir, it is a baby aspirin, 75 milligram. It is, I mean, whether you take it or not, it is there. See, these are not peer-reviewed, randomized, double-blind studies, sir. So this is each doctor's experience, but there is no logic behind it. So, yeah.
So absolutely no medication is required other than from the physician's point of view based on the clinical findings and substantiated with the medical records.
Absolutely.
Good. Then I touch more on PPEs and hand sanitizers and what type of protective mechanisms they do. Another big concern is about the pulse oximeter. Now everybody is a doctor, everybody wants a pulse oximeter and they'll keep on monitoring it, and when there is a fluctuation, gone. My phone keeps non-stop ringing. When they should be concerned, what percentage? Below 90%, above 90%, then above 95%. Though I educate people, from your point of view, it will be a better opinion on that.
These pulse oximeters is the other thing which we have received from China. So they are, my take is that before this corona epidemic started, we have never checked our oxygen saturation. So we actually do not know what is our baseline oxygen saturation. A normal person who is not asthmatic or doesn't have chronic bronchitis, above 95 is the cutoff. Elderly people, we go down up to 85, 88 as long as they are not breathless. They do not have any difficulty in breathing while talking and all. So even if they see that their oxygen saturation is 93, 95, they are good. I think they need to stop checking. I've told them to totally trash it. Yeah.
One thing I have realized, they come and sit to me. Anybody who has not reported to work more than 2 days have to come to the medical center, have a health checkup done, monitor, and then only we issue fitness to allay fear as well to monitor why they were away, etc. So, all of them wear all sorts of masks, and I commonly see them wearing surgical mask or N95 mask, whereas I am using only a surgical mask. And a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes will be spent in front of me because they fill a form. We have a preset form. I question them, and my paramedic is beside to put the pulse oximeter in the hand. And in this 2 minutes of having a pulse oximeter, I realized out of my practical experience in the last 2-3 months, with the cloth mask, their saturation is 97, 98 because they're ventilating. But with surgical mask and N95 mask and all sorts of colorful plastic coated, this, that, and N95, K95, XABC 95, I say them in 93, 94, 90s or 95 like that. I tell them to pull the mask below the nose, and when I keep questioning them, ask them to take a deep breath, it comes up to 97, 98, 99. Then I tell them, see, now it is the time you know what it is, what mask you should wear. You require only a cloth mask to ventilate to prevent droplet infection and not the medically approved mask. This is for medical professionals and not
Healthcare.
for
Yeah.
you.
So yes, the most important thing, I think we are almost near the closing time for the webinar, another 4 minutes. So the most important thing for the mask is it should be covered above the nose up to the chin. Lot of them will be here, pull up, then nothing. Normal common people just need a good cloth mask, maintain social distance, use sanitizer. Three things. They do not need to use N95 or surgical mask. It is overkill and it is going to cause hypoxia. They are not used to it. It will cause a lot of anxiety and all. We don't need it. So I think we are.
I am seeing them reporting to me with the breathlessness, dull aching headache, body
Absolutely.
pain, sleepy feeling. They'll come and say to me, Doctor, I'm feeling sleepy and exhaustively tired. I put the pulse oximeter. It will be 94, 95, 93, somewhere around it. And invariably, I'll see them wearing this plastic or this surgical.
You told me that. Yeah.
Once I pull down, this becomes a educative policy.
Normal.
Also, others to follow the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you very much, sir. Really,
Yes.
really a pleasure talking to you and exchanging these informations with you. Looking forward to doing some good work, and I'm looking forward to your 3 months data also. So
Yes.
catch up with you then.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you
your
very much. Thank you.
patient time.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thank you.